This is for everybody that's experienced a narcissistic relationship. What I want you to know is that it wasn't a lack of knowledge that had anything to do with the outcome of your relationship. It might seem natural for you to want to know everything there is to know about these relationships, the dynamics, and the things that you could do to look out for narcissists in the future. But what I want you to understand is that many of the top content creators are people that had PhDs in psychology prior to a relationship with a narcissist. And these people are extremely difficult to diagnose as narcissists. That people with this disorder are significantly more likely to be diagnosed with things like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, other dissociative disorders, things like anxiety disorder, ADHD, or a number of other diagnoses, because they will exhibit symptoms of any number of disorders. And when they go to get treatment, they're usually dealing with one or more groups of symptoms that they find problematic. And so it is a very difficult, ordeal to attempt to diagnose it, because when you're just looking at the external expression of behaviors and you're talking about people who, from a very early age, from the very moment they started speaking, lived in a different version of reality. They lacked empathy at the very beginning because they were in a persistent state of fight or flight, a chronic abandonment anxiety resultant from experiences when they were in infancy or toddler age. And so understanding that they live in a different world, a transactional world of cause and effect, where they leverage your reactions, your experiences of being not enough, your experiences of fearing abandonment, your experiences of being confused, broken, notions that there's something wrong, that you can be having an extraordinary life prior to meeting one of these individuals. It could be a professional relationship, it could be a friendship, it could be a romantic relationship. But these relationships will follow similar patterns. Where in a romantic relationship, we often talk about, idealization, love bombing, devaluation, and discard. When you start to look at professional relationships and friendships, it might have more of an idolization, idealizing, but more idolizing. So they might idolize you and emulate. And so they might meet somebody who they look up to, or somebody that has traits or attributes that are high quality, creativity or leadership, or simply you're happy or successful. And so these people might come into your life as a friend, as a coworker, and they will start to idolize people, and they will emulate. And what they'll be looking for is equal reciprocation and entitlement to being like you, to being recognized as your equal. And so those relationships will turn from them being a subordinate in their world to them expecting a change in their perceived hierarchy or power dynamic. This will always fail them. They can't be you. They can't be authentic. They are always trying to approximate the behaviors. They're always trying to emulate certain emotions. And they do this to induce the types of social effects that they need. They need people to like them, to feel safe. They're very much afflicted by emotional changes in other people. And so when they're unable to attain the kind of social recognition and respect or reciprocation that their transactional relationship has, if they've done something to contribute to something that you're working on, they will ongoingly expect similar levels of recognition, respect, and admiration that you're obtaining. They will form paranoid ideations. They will start to hold you accountable for their own feelings of inferiority. They may start to undermine you socially or even directly sabotage you, because the inferiority complex is not something that always enables them to perceive an ability to win or to outperform you. And so what they will do is try to sabotage you, and they don't mind sabotaging themselves. Generally speaking, they will have mitigated personal risk, that they will have avoided signing documents or contracts or putting themselves in a position where whatever betrayal or sabotage that they're going to enact upon you would be something that would be revealed or would be something that might carry personal liability. But in instances where they might carry liability, it may not be something that is life-altering for them. And so they will absolutely work to undermine and betray you, and they will do so in secret, often masquerading around as your friend. And so these can be very, very devastating experiences that other people in your life will have a very difficult time relating to. And for those of you who are like me, who are creative, who are good-natured, who see the potential in other people, these people might seem normal throughout your life and very easily beguile you because you mirror yourself onto people. You see, it's often said that narcissists mirror people. And while they do emulate behaviors to attempt to fit in and avoid judgment, they also simply become surrogates for your own interpretations, where you project similarly to narcissists. When you talk about empathy, if you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes, that means you lack empathy. That means you're analyzing because you're not forming appropriate emotions that would define the experiences of other people or properly characterize those people's relationship to you. Your understanding is often the get out of jail free card for other people. When you look at your relationships with narcissists and you think about how confused you were, you think about how many conversations you had, how much time you spent explaining yourself, how many times you were beating your head against the wall, you will see a pattern of understanding, that you've lived in a world of understanding and analyzing that was a security blanket, a false security blanket, because at the end of the relationship, when you've been discarded, smeared, or sued, or had the consequences of your own self-deception and the deception of the narcissist reveal themselves to you in a very abrupt and disturbing way, you will also become even more confused and analytical. See, confusion is not really an attribute of your cognitive abilities or intelligence. It is a conscious blockade. It is the fight or flight reaction, limiting your access to the total sum of your awareness, intelligence, and creativity. That is why when you're under stress, that is why when you've gone through a discard, that is why it is so difficult for you to pick up the pieces, is because you're left ruminating in a persistent fight or flight state where you have had abandonment triggered, where you feel alone, helpless, broken, not good enough, where not good enough becomes the same as the emotional drive of flight, meaning you become avoidant. You become avoidant of social situations. Your mind will be contaminated to the point where you will anticipate failures, you will anticipate rejections, you'll anticipate negations. And so you will experience yourself in a burdensome way in the occurrence of other people. And this will be particularly troubling when you're looking for people to help you reconcile reality in these very confusing and troubling circumstances. Because you could be being financially abused, you could be being smeared, you could have some pretty terrible things happening. You see, they like to blitz you with many different things. They like to keep you in a disempowered state knowingly. So narcissists can be persistent trolls. They can consistently try to trigger you. They can involve other people. They can question your mental health to other people to build a consensus in a smear campaign, which ultimately is like maximizing triangulation, because in these efforts, they will have been building a foundation for the smear campaign. You see, they don't have the same internal fight or flight reactivities that you do. Their narcissistic injury presents a unique advantage in that it's externalized and predatory, whereas people pleasing reactions are more internalized, like not good enough, broken, confusion. You see, they react outwardly and you react inwardly. It is important to understand that these inward reactions of abandonment, something's wrong with me, not good enough, broken, confusion, unworthy, worthless, hopeless, these are all inauthentic, meaning they actually have no real origin. They come from childhood, yes, but even in those original experiences, these were profound conflations between an interpreted experience given by a fight or flight reaction and reality, where children lose their objectivity and start to externally experience a need for validation to avoid abandonment. People imagining they need to be perfect someday in order to become good enough to avoid devaluation, judgment, to finally prove yourself. This is the driving mechanism of your part in these relationships, because you're being triggered to avoid abandonment, which means that you fly to the relationship. Yes, exactly. You see, your fear of abandonment is triggered by the bad behaviors of narcissists, and it creates an inauthentic fear that actually devastates your imagination, your creativity, your mental well-being. It creates prolonged sadness, depression, and grieving. The discard phase of a narcissistic abuse cycle is one of the most horrible experiences a person could ever have. And that's why it's really important for you to understand the nature of these dynamics have nothing to do with you or reality, that you are not broken, that there is nothing not good enough about you. There is nothing deserving or not deserving about these relationship dynamics. Understanding the dynamics that are underneath the experience, that are causing these experiences to be universal. I want you to understand that. If your experience is universal, and everybody who's gone through this has had the same exact relationship, then what does that say about it? It says that there are dynamics at play here that are absolutely unconscious, that patterns of reactivity, patterns of behavior lack conscious freedom. And so understanding that this is a neurological pattern, more so than just an emotional pattern, more so than just the result of trauma, helps us start to look at how we can transform these experiences from the most horrible experiences to potentially the most enlightening experiences. You see, while it is the most horrible experience of your life, it is also true that every single one of your triggers will be simultaneously activated during the course of these discard relationships, these betrayals, these sabotages, providing an opportunity to take a deeper look at what it is that we can let go of, to find ourselves with a new level of discernment, a restoration of present moment awareness, and a form of consciousness that is present, that has real empathy, that protects you from betrayal, and that leaves you in a place of empowerment without the need of external validation in order to stave off fears of abandonment. What would your life look like if you never worried about being abandoned? If you did not have trust issues or need to trust people simply because you would understand people? What would it be like if you just got the way that people were and you could navigate with power and clarity and freedom and purpose? What if there was more to you than what meets the eye? What if simply being a people pleaser is a pathological way to exist, and there are easy and effortless ways to escape this paradigm. That is the world of transformation. That is the world that I'm creating within my book. A methodological approach that I hope makes an impact on the world of psychology, and a neurological explanation for these pathological ways of existing that can bring new medical preparations that can actually be an effective cure for people with NPD or other disorders that are a little more difficult to treat with conventional modalities, even transformational programs and processes like those that I will outline and those that I offer to my coaching clientele. If you're interested in a one-on-one coaching session, the cost is $200. And the timeline could be anywhere from 45 minutes to 3 or 4 hours. But it's a process. It's not an hourly fee. It is an outcome. It is a restoration to present moment consciousness and a methodological approach that is life-changing, that produces what's typically called enlightenment, but reveals it to be an ordinary phenomenon, a restoration to normal. And that's all it has been, and that's what's available.